Every year, Americans spend more than $40 billion on beef alone. Every grocery cart in the country has some in it. We've been told our whole lives. That's where real protein lives. That's not wrong. It's incomplete. That belief didn't happen on its own. For most of the 20th century, meat and dairy boards ran national ad campaigns telling Americans a real meal needed meat on the plate. It worked so well that 3 generations later, most people have never once questioned it, including you, probably, until right now. Today, we're counting down 16 plants that match or beat beef on protein. Gram for gram, no exceptions. Number 9 is sitting in almost every pantry in America, and most people have been cooking it wrong their whole lives without knowing it. And by number 1, I'm going to tell you about a village, no rain for months, no crops, no aid trucks getting through, and how one tree kept it standing. If you're new here, subscribe before we start and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, because wherever you are, this next part applies to you the same way it applies to me. Muscle mass declines with age, and protein is one of the few things that actually slows it down. Doesn't matter if it comes from a steak or a bowl of lentils. Your body just needs the protein. Let's count them down. Number 16, Brussels sprouts. Greek and Roman physicians grew brassica family vegetables like this one and wrote about them as a remedy for tired, overworked muscles. On the other side of the world, with no contact between the two traditions, Ayurvedic medicine reached for the same plant family when the body needed to recover from being worn down. Different continents apparently arriving at the same conclusion, and the numbers back it up. A cooked cup of Brussels sprouts has 4 grams of protein, only 56 calories. Better protein per calorie than most cuts of beef you'd buy this week. Chop your Brussels sprouts, then don't cook them right away. Let them sit on the cutting board for 5 to 10 minutes first. Here's why. Cutting into the sprout starts a natural chemical reaction inside the plant, one that some research suggests may be good for lowering inflammation in the body. But that reaction needs a little time to finish. If you throw the sprout straight into a hot pan, the heat stops the reaction before it's done, and you lose most of the benefit. So, chop, wait 10 minutes, then roast. 200 degrees Celsius, 18 to 20 minutes, until the outer leaves turn dark and slightly crisp. That bitter, nutty taste at the edges is a sign the reaction finished properly. Nobody needed a study to know this worked. They just kept eating it, generation after generation, and passed it down as fact. Number 15. Green peas. Ancient Egyptian farmers were growing peas as far back as 4,800 years ago. Half a world away and centuries later, Roman and Greek physicians were writing about the same plant for the same reason: food that could keep a body going through hard physical labor. No contact between them, no shared texts. Just the same plant, chosen for the same job, and it turns out they were onto something the numbers still back up today. A cooked cup of green peas contains 9 grams of protein, and unlike most plants, peas contain all 9 essential amino acids, the building blocks your body needs but can't make on its own. That's rare enough in the plant world that it's worth knowing how to protect it once the peas hit your kitchen. Don't boil them. Steam instead, just 4 to 6 minutes. Boiling breaks down the protein and washes out the color. That's why peas that sit too long in hot water turn that dull, tired green instead of staying bright. Steam them lightly, then finish with a little olive oil. Peas also improve the soil while they grow. Their roots pull nitrogen straight from the air, something most plants can't do on their own, and deposit it into the ground around them. That nitrogen doesn't disappear. when the pea plant is gone. It stays in the soil, and whatever you plant in that same spot next season, tomatoes, lettuce, almost anything, gets a head start because of it. Number 14. Amaranth. Most people have never heard of amaranth. That's strange because it isn't some rare, hard-to-find crop. It grows easily, almost anywhere, and it's been feeding people in the Americas for thousands of years, going back to civilizations that built entire harvest festivals around it. A cooked cup of amaranth contains close to 9 grams of protein, and it includes lysine, an amino acid. Most grains are missing entirely. That matters more than it sounds. Lysine is one of the main reasons a diet built heavily around bread or rice alone tends to fall short on protein, even when it doesn't look like it should. Rinse dried amaranth first, then cook it at a ratio of 1 part amaranth to 2.5 parts water. Bring it to a boil, drop it to a low simmer, cover the pot, and leave the lid alone for 20 full minutes. Lifting the lid early lets steam escape that the grain still needs to finish cooking properly. A crop that fed civilizations for thousands of years, still sitting almost nowhere on a modern grocery list. Number 13. Black beans. Long before black beans ended up next to rice on a dinner plate, they were feeding entire civilizations across Mesoamerica and South America, one of the oldest cultivated legumes on the continent, grown in some form for thousands of years before European contact. A cooked cup of black beans contains around 15 grams of protein, alongside roughly 15 grams of fiber. That fiber number matters as much as the protein does. It feeds the bacteria in your gut, and a healthier gut appears to play a large role in how well your body handles the low-grade inflammation that follows physical activity. Soak dried black beans for at least 8 hours, then throw out that soaking water and cook them in fresh water. Simmer for 90 minutes to 2 hours, depending on how old the beans are. Older, drier beans take longer. If you're using canned beans instead, a good rinse under running water washes away a large amount of the added sodium. A food this common has no business being this overlooked. Number 12. Peanuts. Peanuts aren't actually nuts. They're legumes, which is exactly why they belong on this list next to beans and lentils, not next to almonds and walnuts. That one mix-up in the name has kept peanuts out of a lot of high-protein plant conversations they should have been part of from the start. An ounce, about a small handful, contains 7 grams of protein, along with a fat profile that leans mostly monounsaturated, the same type found in olive oil. Cost comparison studies on protein sources consistently rank peanuts and peanut butter among the cheapest protein you can buy, by a wide margin. Buy them from a source you trust, and store them somewhere cool and dry. Peanuts are prone to a mold-related toxin in humid or poorly stored conditions, and that risk drops sharply with proper storage. If you're roasting your own, 160 degrees Celsius for 15 to 20 minutes brings out the flavor without the added oil and salt most store-bought roasted peanuts are packed with. A food this cheap, doing this much work, deserves better than the bottom shelf. Number 11. Tempeh. Tempeh comes from Indonesia, where it's been made for centuries by fermenting whole soybeans with a specific mold culture until they bind into a firm, dense cake. It's one of the few plant proteins in the world that owes its texture entirely to fermentation rather than processing. A genuinely different food from tofu, even though people often lump the two together. A cooked cup contains around 31 grams of protein, a striking number for a plant food, and the fermentation process is part of why. It partially breaks the protein down into a form your body absorbs more easily, and it reduces compounds that would otherwise interfere with how well you absorb minerals from the same meal. Slice it about a 1/4 inch thick and steam it for 10 minutes first. This softens the natural bitterness fermentation leaves behind. Then pan-sear in a small amount of oil until golden, 3 to 4 minutes per side. A fermented block of soybeans doing more with protein than almost anything else on this list. Number 10. Quinoa. Quinoa was a staple crop in the Andes for thousands of years before it ever showed up in a Western grocery store, grown at altitudes where few other crops could survive at all. It sustained entire populations through some of the harshest growing conditions on the continent: cold nights, thin soil, short seasons. A cooked cup contains around 8 grams of protein, and quinoa is one of the few plant foods that genuinely earns the label complete protein. All 9 essential amino acids in reasonably balanced proportions. Rinse it first, even if the package says pre-rinsed. Quinoa's outer coating naturally contains bitter compounds called saponins, and 30 seconds under cold water washes most of them away. Cook it at a 1:2 ratio with water. Simmer gently for 15 minutes, then let it sit covered for 5 more before you touch it. A crop that survived where almost nothing else could, and still does the same job in a kitchen today. Number 9. Kidney beans. Kidney beans were domesticated in the Americas thousands of years ago and later became a kitchen staple across 3 continents: chili in Texas, red beans and rice in Louisiana, rajma in northern India. Each culture landing on the same bean for the same reason: it holds its shape, it's filling, and it's cheap to grow. A cooked cup of kidney beans contains around 15 grams of protein, alongside real amounts of iron and fiber. But raw and undercooked kidney beans contain a natural compound called phytohemagglutinin, a lectin that can cause serious stomach illness if the beans aren't cooked properly. This isn't a rare or theoretical risk. Food safety agencies have documented real cases tied specifically to undercooked kidney beans, more than almost any other bean. The fix is simple, and it's the step most home cooks skip. Soak dried kidney beans for at least 5 hours, ideally overnight, and throw out that soaking water. Then boil them at a full rolling boil for at least 10 minutes before dropping to a simmer for the remaining 45 minutes to an hour. If you're using a slow cooker, boil the beans on the stovetop first. Many slow cookers don't get hot enough fast enough to neutralize the compound on their own. Canned kidney beans are already processed at safe commercial temperatures, so they're a reliable shortcut if you'd rather skip the process at home. A genuinely good food. It just asks a little respect in the kitchen before it earns your trust. 10 minutes at a real boil, and that's the whole fix. Cheap insurance for a food that's been feeding people for thousands of years. Quick one before we keep going. If you haven't already, subscribe. It genuinely helps this channel keep going. And comment which one of these 9 you already had in your kitchen without knowing its real value. Let's keep going. Number 8. Chickpeas. Archaeological digs at Jericho have traced chickpea cultivation back roughly 9,000 years, making it one of the oldest crops we have any record of. From there, it spread in every direction: east into the Byzantine world, further east into the Indus Valley, south through the early Islamic caliphates, until it was feeding armies and farming villages across a stretch of the map most of those civilizations never even mapped themselves. A cooked cup contains around 15 grams of protein and 12 grams of fiber. And that fiber isn't just filler. It's what your gut bacteria actually eat. And a well-fed gut microbiome has been linked to faster recovery from the kind of inflammation physical activity leaves behind. Soak dried chickpeas for around 12 hours. Throw out the water and simmer in fresh water until just tender to about 90 minutes. That soaking step meaningfully reduces phytic acid, which improves how well your body absorbs the minerals chickpeas carry. Roasted at 200 degrees Celsius for 25 minutes with a little olive oil, they make a genuinely good snack. 9,000 years of use is its own kind of evidence. Number 7. Seitan. Seitan has been part of East Asian cooking, particularly Buddhist vegetarian traditions, for well over 1,000 years. Developed as a way to get a dense, chewy, meat-like texture from nothing but wheat, gluten, and water, long before meat alternative was a category anyone needed a name for. A 3-ounce serving contains around 25 grams of protein, a number that goes toe-to-toe with most cuts of beef by weight, and higher than almost any bean or legume on this list. It's pure wheat gluten, so it's not an option if you're avoiding gluten, and the texture is genuinely different from a whole food protein, dense and chewy, closer to meat in the mouth than beans or lentils ever get. To prepare it, slice and pan sear in a little oil over medium-high heat, 3 to 4 minutes per side, until the edges crisp. A food built to solve one very specific problem, still solving it 1,000 years later. Number 6. Pumpkin seeds. Cucurbit family plants, pumpkins, squash, their relatives, have been cultivated in the Americas for close to 10,000 years, among the oldest food crops on the continent. Indigenous farming traditions across North America dried and stored the seeds specifically as a protein and fat reserve to get through the leaner months, long before refrigeration existed. An ounce of pumpkin seeds contains around 9 grams of protein, more than the same weight of ground beef, and they're one of the most concentrated natural sources of magnesium in any common food, alongside a real amount of zinc. Toast raw seeds in a dry skillet over medium heat, 3 to 5 minutes, stirring constantly until they puff slightly and turn light golden. Salt after removing from heat, not before. Salting too early toughens the shell. Every autumn, millions of pounds of this get scraped out and thrown away. The people who stored these for winter would have found that hard to watch. Number 5. Hemp seeds. Hemp shows up in Chinese agricultural records as far back as 2700 BCE, listed as both a food and medicine crop. Centuries later, and a continent away, the Scythians, nomadic horse warriors described by the Greek historian Herodotus, carried hemp seeds as travel food on long journeys, the way an endurance athlete today might carry a pack of nut butter. 3 tablespoons contain around 10 grams of complete protein, all 9 essential amino acids, including methionine and cysteine, the 2 aminos most other plant proteins fall short on. Digestibility studies on hemp protein have reported scores comparable to egg white, unusually high for anything from a plant. No preparation needed. Add 3 tablespoons to oatmeal, blend into a smoothie, or stir into yogurt. Keep them in the refrigerator once opened. Their fat content is prone to going rancid at room temperature over time. Hemp and marijuana come from the same plant species, which is the entire reason hemp seeds spent decades sidelined in the U.S., even though the seeds themselves contain no meaningful amount of the compound that makes marijuana what it is. The nutrition was never the problem. The name was. Number 4. Edamame, young soybeans. Soybeans have been cultivated across East Asia for more than 3,000 years, and soy protein has been studied in labs more thoroughly than almost any other plant protein. There are 9 amino acids your body needs but can't make on its own. You have to get them from food. Most plants are missing 1 or 2 of them entirely. Soy has all 9, and in amounts your body can actually use. That's rare enough that nutrition scientists call soy a complete protein, without any qualifiers. A cup of cooked edamame contains around 17 grams of protein, genuinely comparable to a serving of ground beef. Nutrition comparisons between beef patties and soy-based patties have found the protein gap between the two is narrower than most people assume. In some formulations, close enough that it's hard to call a clear winner on protein alone. Boil the pods in salted water for 4 to 5 minutes, then finish with a light sprinkle of sea salt. If you're buying processed soy products like patties or crumbles instead, the ingredient list is worth a glance. Some lean heavily on soy protein isolate with a long list of additives, while others are close to whole soybeans with almost nothing added. The comparison that started this whole conversation, and it holds up. Number 3. Sprouted lentils. Lentils have been part of human diets in the Near East for roughly 8,000 years, among the very first crops anyone ever domesticated, right alongside wheat and barley. They've stayed a dietary backbone across South Asia and the Mediterranean ever since, through every shift in what else was available to eat. A cooked cup of lentils already delivers around 18 grams of protein, more than 3 eggs. Sprouting them pushes that further. Research on sprouted lentils has found the process improves protein digestibility and boosts certain vitamin levels compared to the same lentils cooked without sprouting first. To sprout them at home, rinse dried lentils, soak 8 to 12 hours, drain, and leave them in a jar loosely covered with a breathable cloth, rinsing twice a day. Within 2 to 3 days, you'll have visible sprouts, ready raw in a salad or lightly cooked. If sprouting isn't for you, plain cooked lentils are still excellent. Red lentils go soft and creamy in about 20 minutes with no soaking required, while brown and green hold their shape closer to 30. One of the first crops anyone ever grew on purpose. Still, one of the best reasons to grow them now. Number 2. Spirulina. Spirulina is a blue-green algae, not a plant in the strict sense, but it's been harvested by hand for centuries around mineral-rich lakes on 2 separate continents. Lake Texcoco in what's now Mexico, and Lake Chad in North Africa. Neither the Aztecs nor the Kanembu people had contact with each other, and both independently developed methods for skimming it off the water's surface, drying it, and pressing it into cakes to eat. By dry weight, spirulina runs somewhere around 60 to 70% protein, compared to roughly 26% for beef. 2 tablespoons of the powder deliver around 8 grams of highly bioavailable protein, along with iron, B vitamins, and a blue-green pigment called phycocyanin, currently being studied for its antioxidant properties, though that research is still developing. Start small, a teaspoon in cold water, juice, or a smoothie. The flavor is distinctly oceanic, and most people find it easier to work up to larger amounts gradually. Keep preparation cold. Temperatures above about 60 degrees Celsius begin to degrade some of its more delicate compounds. An algae doing more nutritional work per gram than almost anything else on this list. Number 1. Moringa. Remember the village from the start of this video. No rain for months, no crops in the ground, no aid trucks getting through on roads that had turned to dust. What kept people fed wasn't a shipment that finally arrived. It was a tree that was already there, one that keeps producing even when almost nothing else will grow. That tree is Moringa, and this exact scenario is why international relief organizations plant it first in malnutrition response programs, before almost anything else. 100 grams of dried Moringa leaf powder contains roughly 27 grams of complete protein, all 9 essential amino acids, comparable to a lean cut of beef by weight. That's genuinely unusual. Leaves are almost never a serious protein source. Most leafy greens barely register on a nutrition label. Moringa is the exception. It also carries meaningful calcium, potassium, and vitamin C, all from one plant that grows fast in poor soil. Stir 1 teaspoon of Moringa leaf powder into warm water or broth, not boiling, since temperatures above about 70 degrees Celsius measurably degrade its vitamin C content. Fresh leaves can go straight into soup after cooking. A moringa tree grown in a warm climate or a large container can reach 15 feet in its first year and be harvested multiple times a season. It isn't marketed as a superfood because it doesn't need to be. It's used quietly by people who don't have the luxury of getting nutrition wrong. 60 years of advertising built the belief that a real meal needs meat on it. 16 plants just showed you the math never actually supported that as strongly as the campaigns did. That's really the question worth carrying with you. How much of what you believe about food came from a study, and how much came from a slogan somebody paid to put in your head decades ago? If this changed how you look at your own kitchen, hit like and pass it along to someone who still thinks protein only comes from a butcher's counter. Subscribe if you want more of these breakdowns. And drop a comment telling me which of these 16 surprised you most. I read everyone. I'm Elias Ford. This is The Honest Root. See you in the next one.